one of the most successful teams in European open wheel racing, Prema will start up an NTT IndyCar Series program in 2025. They'll field 2 full-time IndyCar entries using Chevrolet engines and taking on the Indianapolis 500 for the very first time. Years after being one of the benchmark teams on the road to F1's ladder system, Prema will have a new challenge as they look to find success in the highly competitive IndyCar Series. Now, Prema brings a championship-winning pedigree who have won a total of 80 titles in team's history, and they've produced 9 active F1 drivers, including Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Esteban Ocon, and Pierre Gasly as well. Now, also Indy 500 winner Jacques Villeneuve and IndyCar drivers Felix Rosenqvist and Marcus Armstrong and Callum Ilott have also come up through Prema's driver development program. Prema plans to operate its 2-car IndyCar program in Indiana. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a high-profile and successful team from Europe try its hand at IndyCar. In 2018, Carlin came to IndyCar and left at the end of the 2020 season. Of course, they've now become Rodin Motorsports over here in Europe. And despite Carlin finding success on the road to Formula One, they weren't able to produce the same magic in IndyCar and struggled a lot. Carlin's lowest point was 2 of their 3 cars getting bumped from the Indy 500 in 2019. Max Chilton and Pato O'Ward weren't quick enough to make the field of 33. Remember, McLaren's failed attempt to make the race with Fernando Alonso was a Carlin-affiliated car. So all 3 cars that failed to make the 2019 Indy 500 also had Carlin ties. More detail on Prema's new IndyCar program will be announced at a later date. The graphic courtesy there of Penske Entertainment. They have also done a press conference earlier on today during the rain delay. That is available on the NTT Data IndyCar website, and we'll be having more information on that in coming days as well. And months as we understand more of their program. Aloha, says the Grid Network team to Astral. I want to say aloha as well. And as Josh T says, hello to both Kobe and Matt. Good evening to you both. And Kobe, starting with you, how big of a deal is it for IndyCar to have a powerhouse team like Prema joining the series? And should Carlin's story serve as a cautionary tale?
Before I answer a question, Josh, going to go through some of the comments here. Astro Police says, interesting that Prema is joining now, right as they're transitioning to hybrid power. And yeah, they're supposed to go to the new hybrid engine in IndyCar after the Indianapolis 500, but we haven't heard anything more on that. So I'm sure, as the weeks go on, we'll probably hear an official word, whether that's still the case or they're just going to wait till next season. But if it was me, I'll probably wait till next season to start fresh to give it even more months of development. And Just Games 95 said, evening to you as well. Astro Police also saying you're here for it. Welcome to Prema. And then Ami is saying that Prema might just get you even more into IndyCar. Yeah, that's always a great thing as well. And then our own Ben Snyder, who has a lot to say on this subject, I know, saying, but have Prema paid $200 million and proven that they will provide additional value to IndyCar rather than the other way around? Have they? Yeah, Ben, we're gonna touch on that story more than once.
He's gone early on that. And you're going to wait till subject 3 of the night for that to come up.
Yep, Ben, stay tuned because we're going to talk a little bit about Andretti later in tonight's show. And Joe Samniego says, you forgot about Carlin and IndyCar. Good point. And Josh, answering your question now, I think it's a massive deal for the IndyCar to get a team like Prema coming in. Prema is well known internationally as one of the best developmental teams on the road to F1. And I'm saying not just on the road to F1, just in motorsports in general. So many high profile drivers have worked with Prema. Josh already said that 9 current Formula One drivers went through Prema program, and some current IndyCar drivers have also been in Prema as well. So Prema really knows how to spot and develop talent. One of the best driver development programs that you can get if you're trying to get into Formula One. And for them to decide to move over to the NTT IndyCar Series and further expand their program, I think that's massive to get a team like Prema. This isn't just a small startup team that's just coming in. This is a motorsports powerhouse who wants to come over here and prove that they can be successful in IndyCar as well. And Josh, the point you brought up about Carlin, I think that's really good. Remember when Carlin first came to IndyCar, lots of people were excited about it. Carlin has been very successful on the road to F1, and we can see them do the exact same thing in IndyCar. But besides the pole that Connor Daly got in that number 59 car at Iowa, we really haven't seen, we didn't really see Carlin, have the same results. So that pole at Iowa with Connor Daly is probably, highlight of Carlin's time in the NTT IndyCar Series. But I do think Prema, they're a top-notch organization that they're going to do their homework, get all the right people in the right places, and they're going to make sure that they don't end up like Carlin Racing and end up not meeting the expectations that we expected them in IndyCar.
Fire up the band, start the music, set the fireworks off, put the moon in front of the sun. It's good news for IndyCar. And we've had cars on track at Indianapolis today with the open test. This is brilliant. I love this story. Finally, we're getting your European eyes on the series. Well, in a team sense, we're getting some European eyes on the series in IndyCar. And if you have followed in any shape or form the single-seater ladder in Europe, you would know about Prema. As you mentioned, Josh, they've had plenty of current and past or people that have come into Formula One and gone out the other side again through their doors. They're currently running rookie sensation of the year so far in Formula One, Ollie Behrman, and prospective rookie of the year in future in Formula One potentially, Nico Kimi Antonelli in F2 this year. So, big deal. Really good that they're going to have the base in Indianapolis or the Indianapolis surrounding area. Really interested to see what they do in terms of drivers. They've said they're going to have, an IndyCar veteran to team up with a young gun, maybe whether they come from the Indy Next ladder or from F2, F3, and have found nowhere to go. Ollie Behrman might be that man that goes with them to IndyCar. You never know. And we keep talking about Ferrari potentially coming to IndyCar. That's been rumored for some time. Maybe this is the Italians are coming to IndyCar, and it's Prema that are leading the charge. Really, really good positive news. Great time for them to come in, as Astro mentioned in his comment before about, it's all going to be changing a little bit with the hybrid. This is a great time to come in. You think back to when Carlin did come. The series was, we've had this car, as we've mentioned on the show, for a long time now. What are we on? 12 years. Everyone was set in with this car. It was always going to be difficult for a new team to come in and catch up and then keep up with the paddock of the IndyCar Series. But I feel like this is a great time for them to come. If the cars look like the rendering that we had on screen before, they'll look great. And all positive for IndyCar. There it is again. If you missed it before, looks fantastic in any way, shape, or form. Stick a couple of sponsor stickers on there, and it'll certainly look fast. That is a traditional Prema kind of color scheme, which they've been running in F2, F3, and in the WEC over the last couple of years in the LMP2 class. So really positive, and I think this is going to be a good little fillet for IndyCar going forwards.
Do you remember when the news used to be like scandals and who's lying, and now it's just announcements? I mean, come on. I know, it's so good, isn't it? It's nice to get back to a bit of, so last month. It's time to get a bit better, to a bit of normality, which is nice because we're not having to run around with scandals and talk like we're lawyers. We're not lawyers, we're journalists. Completely different sometimes. Jessica said Prema to IndyCar is a good move. It would hopefully bring more people to watch the sport. Plus they have been very successful in the feeder series, and I hope their first season IndyCar goes well as well with the love heart emoji. I agree. Hopefully we'll see them challenging up there as well quite early for race victories, and maybe a shot at the Indy 500 as well if they get some good talent behind those wheels. We know the Chevy package is a contender out of the last few years as well. Josh T said this is big. Prema joining means they will be a path from F2 to IndyCar if F1 doesn't work out for that driver, which is even better news as well. Ferrari, says Amber as well. Well, it sort of completes a nice little tale, doesn't it? Because Prema is very strongly linked with Ferrari. It's also very strongly linked with that of Mercedes. But of course, in the 1980s, Ferrari threatened to join IndyCar, and now it finally looks like they're just dipping their toe in a little bit and seeing what their partners think of it all. A Day in the Life says, I was excited at IMS today, and the news of Prema coming was stellar. Hopefully you've dried out, because it did get very wet. And and the car does look nice. Sticks with the Prema colours as well, says Josh T. It does, and it does look a very good car. With Chevrolet engines, this is indicate Honda is leaving. No, I don't think so. What do you think,
I don't
guys?
think.
That,
I don't think not necessarily. No, I don't think not necessarily. Matt,
I'll take it. Matt, you agree?
No, still up in the air, isn't it? We've talked about Honda on the show in previous weeks, so Still wranglings about the hybrid and whether Honda will stick or twist and go to NASCAR. That's still up in the air. Josh T also commenting here. So another point: could we see Prema try to join Indy next, create an Indy ladder, or is there stuff restricting them? I don't think so.
I don't think.
We've got
Yeah,
plenty of the top teams running and have done previously in when it was lights, haven't we, Kobe? The run in IndyCar and in lights. Yunkos springs to mind.
Yeah. And I'm thinking with that, the more the merrier, right? It would take some pressure off of HMD, from feeling like almost like 2/3 of the field. And I know that's very expensive for them. So if we're able to have more teams come into Indy next, HMD wouldn't have to, carry the large truckload of cars in the series, and also Andretti Global as well. That's basically the entire series, minus some of the smaller teams that we have. So I think if Prema decided to, start up a ladder system on the road to Indy, that would be great as well. Give more drivers opportunities.
I'll say it for Matthew Owens and Ben Schneider. Bring back the Freedom 100. End of. Right. Moving on. There's and the Prema colours fit well. I agree, says Jess as well. They do. They just fit. The F1 ladder and Indy ladder would be strong. Well, Andretti could be in that. More on that later as well. When we get to our third story of the evening. But it does seem like Prema team principal of Rene Rosin understands that IndyCar won't be a cakewalk. Now, Rosin has said that competing in IndyCar won't be easy, but they're determined to put in their best effort, learn as quickly as possible, and become leading contenders right from the start. Adding that Prema has tremendous respect for IndyCar, its unique challenges, sensational history, and look forward to being a part of it. Now, according to Marshall Pruitt from Bracer.com, Prema is planning to sign an experienced IndyCar driver to take up one of their seats, and the second driver will be a young driver from the road to F1. I wonder who that could be in the list of many talents as well. Which drivers would be a good fit for Prema's debut season in IndyCar? And do you agree with this strategy for a new team's driver lineup? Matt, I'll start with you.
I do. And this is, it's been part of Prema's DNA, hasn't it, in the single-seater ladder here in Europe in F2 and F3 and GP3 and GP2 before that. Bringing through the young talent. They've obviously been linked with the Ferrari Driver Academy for quite some time on this side of the big Atlantic pond. So we'll see what happens. I was trying to have a think about who could be in the frame in the experience stakes that are, coming towards the end of a current deal. What will Simon Pagenaud do? He's on the shelf at the moment for the injuries that he sustained in that big crash at Mid-Ohio last year. Is there a chance that Simon could come back because a European name, French, obviously not Italian, but has been in the series and knows it like the back of his hand, Indy 500 winner and champion? That'd be a good fit for them in the veteran stakes. There's plenty of names in the pot there that could come in and do a great job. Connor Daly would be excellent for them. He needs a full-time ride really in the series. He would be a good fit. If you think about people on the young driver side, they'll have both pools to pick from, won't they? They'll have eyes on what's happening in Indy next, and there's plenty of talented young kids coming through the ladder there, what we call the road to Indy, and of course people running out of money or not finding a seat when the music stops from Formula 3 and Formula 2 and heading off to sports cars. You think of Fred Vesti, who was runner-up in F2 last year. He's going to be in action in sports cars this weekend. More on that later when we get to the EPI. And other people that have been in towards the top of F2 that just haven't found the way forward from there up to Formula 1 in the recent years. So another great opportunity for those guys to continue their single-seat career and not have it stop at the F2 block before we get to F1.
Yeah, Matt, you brought up some great names there as well. I didn't even think about Connor Daly and Simon Pagenaud before you mentioned it, but yeah, we still haven't heard anything on Simon Pagenaud's condition. Hopefully he's doing well. Hopefully we'll see him at the racetrack at some point this year and get an update on his health. That would be really sad if Simon's racing career is over because of that crash at Mid-Ohio, but we're gonna hope for the best for him. And if he's fit and able to return to racing at some point in the future and still has the desire to race in IndyCar, I think he certainly would be at the top of any team's list if they're trying to enter IndyCar. Like you said, Matt, Pagenaud knows the series, really, really well, and I think Prema would really benefit from his experience if he gets to call in Connor Daly as well. I think he will also be a good fit for their team. But Marshall Pruitt, reported that they're looking for an experienced IndyCar driver to take up. So see, I wonder, like, by experience, so you mean like years of experience or a couple of years of experience? And then the second driver from the road to F1 didn't really specify if it's a driver who's a current Prema driver on the road to F1 or someone who they previously worked with in the past. But we know one thing is not going to be Ollie Behrman and it's not going to be Andrea Kimi Antonelli because they're destined for Formula One. I would be very surprised if either one of those drivers ended up in an IndyCar seat. But I was thinking about one driver who's trying to get back in IndyCar full-time next year would be a good fit, and he's previously raced with Prema. I think Callum Ilott would be a good fit for Prema. He could fall under the young driver category, or he could also fall under experience as well, since has a couple of seasons of IndyCar racing under his belt. I think he would be a really good choice as well. And some other drivers who have flirted with IndyCar in the past, past Prema drivers like Robert Schwartzman. I believe he tested a Ganassi IndyCar a season ago, 2 seasons ago, don't remember exactly when. And then Mick Schumacher, we've heard his name in the rumor mill as well about potentially being interested in IndyCar. Don't know if he's going to be back in F1 full time at some point, or maybe he tries his hand in IndyCar. Getting the Schumacher name in IndyCar would be a big deal. And a current Formula One driver who could be on the outs after this year, why not bring over Logan Sargent with Prema, since Logan Sargent previously drove for this organization? And if Logan is out at Williams at the end of the year, I think this would be a good place for him to come back home. It's certainly be interesting to see who Prema decides to sign up for his debut season in the NTT IndyCar Series.
Yeah, I'm very much doubtful that we're going to see Logan Sargent in Formula One for much longer if Williams keep treating him like this, which is a shame because I think he's come on leaps and bounds in the past couple of months. And after last year where we said give him the season, he's got the season. He did really well at the end of it. And now this year, he was going well. Albon makes the mistake and suddenly Sargent is paying for it. It's weird. Josh T says, if that happens, then that could go well, having a more experienced driver coach the younger driver, share data, etc. But then again, stuff can go wrong. It can indeed. Yes, Callum Ilott. Yeah, it looks like that. I would put it as Ilott really coming in as well. I know Pourchaire's hanging around as well, but he looks to be linked in with McLaren if David Malukas isn't ready for a while, even though Pourchaire deserves a seat in F1. But as we were talking earlier on, there's no seats really available. Josh T says, I don't see Behrman and Antonelli in IndyCar. They're definitely going to F1. Callum and Mick, I can see happening. I can see that too. Mainly, I can also see Callum Ilott more than Mick Schumacher. Logan might go WEC or IndyCar. Carlos Sainz also, don't forget, is out of a seat. And Ferrari with Prema ties as well. Could Carlos Sainz be making a trip over for a year while he waits for Audi to come in for 2026? So could we see 2025 have Carlos Sainz come in? That's an option as well, don't forget. Logan nearly won F3 in 2020. It could be good. It was the race of Tuscany that screwed him over. It really did, because we had 3 races there, of course, that weekend, and it ruined everything at that tight, twisty circuit. And we completed an entire Formula 3 championship in 8 weeks. It was not great.